Gotta be true to yourself. In a world there's nothing else. Gotta play the game right, gotta make your path. You scratch, you dig, you lay on your ground, you bustin' your rounds. Nobody gon' stop you. No ops, no cops, everything about you looking good. You good, she good. Y'all people really wanna know the reason.
What's that?
It's just that ripple effect. That karma come back quick. Do somebody wrong, you get sick. I just inspire kids because of that maybe I get rich. Gotta see the future, be smarter than a rooster. No hookah, you focus. No drinking, no smoking, no tokens, no handouts. Everybody in the world, get your plans out. Let's do it, let's go, let's get our minds ready. We elevate intellects right here on the K-Dot Show. That's just that ripple effect. That's just that ripple. That's just that ripple effect. What you do, come back triple. That's just that ripple effect. That's just that ripple. That's just that ripple effect. What you do, come back triple.
Hey, what's going on? It's your girl K-Dot back in the ripple effect. You already know what it is and you already know the vibes. Listen, I know there's so much to talk about. I'm sorry, I've been crazy busy doing behind the scenes things. You'll see when certain things come out of nowhere and people are like, hey, how'd you get that done? And listen, things keep rolling, things keep moving, sports don't stop. You know, I'm on Instagram and, you know, my other platforms pretty heavy. So if you've been paying attention, you know, I've still been pretty vocal, still been out there. TikTok especially, you know, if you guys really want to get into it. But it's glad to be back. Missed you guys. If you guys, or if this is the first time you're hearing me, welcome. And where you been? Like, what's up with that? But anywho, I wanted to get into something. I talked about it very briefly on TikTok. So we got to talk about this whole Brett Favre thing, right? I talked about it a little bit on my podcast, but I want to make sure I highlight this more so than other issues, just based off of the simple fact that this is just straight criminal, right? Talking about Brett Favre, it's crazy. Even earlier today, yeah, I get up pretty early, so I'm driving, listening to ESPN radio, you know, regular. And I'm listening to a COPPERFIT commercial. You know, those things that athletes wear, you know, or just people who have different aches and pains and, you know, carpal tunnel syndrome, whatever. I'm listening to it, not really listening to it. And I hear the voice and I'm like, wait, is that Brett Favre? He's still doing commercials? I know some people want to say it's alleged. You know, I don't know. From what I've seen, from what I heard, it's pretty incriminating, and I'm not here to like sit here and, you know, be judge, jury, and executioner. It's not what I do, not trying to do that. But I'm really talking about the court of public opinion right now. And I think it's ridiculous because people who still believe that we don't live in two Americas, this should be proof that you can be accused of stealing $6 million from, what, the poorest county in the country that resides in the state of Mississippi to build some damn volleyball court? And I'm not just saying that because I'm not into volleyball. I'm saying, like, really? I don't care what you were trying to do. You were stealing from the poor in order to do it when you could have put your hands in your own pocket to do it. And even if you couldn't, you still shouldn't be doing it. But, I mean, it's just even more egregious to me. And we're sort of treating this like, you know, I don't hear him being called any names. I don't hear him losing COPPERFIT for a sponsor. Everybody's still rocking with him. The news cycle still goes on. I mean, Michael Vick, right? Also a beloved quarterback, right? Did amazing things. Definitely a trailblazer, trendsetter. You know how he did. And do you remember what happened to him with the dog fighting? And listen, before everybody jumps down my throat about the dogs, and I have dogs. I love dogs. Love animals, period. Was he wrong? Yes. Did he serve his time? Yes. But when you look at the sponsors that turned their back on him, besides everybody else, and the names that he was being called, the different news cycles that he was in constant rotation about. And even if you don't want to go that heavy and just kind of say, well, different situation, I'll give you another one. Cam Newton can say a sentence that a lot of people don't agree with, even if I don't agree with it. It doesn't matter. Why is it in the news so heavy? And you can literally steal $6 million because you're Brett Favre or look like Brett Favre, and nobody even really talks about it. And here's another example. I put up just about every, thing when it pertains to, the NFL and the NBA, and especially if there's, different things that I want to highlight in baseball and soccer and tennis and golf, but the things that I put up heavy is basketball and NFL, right? I mean NBA and NFL, right? Because it's NBA, NFL, and everything in between. You already know how I do. So I know what stories get the most hits. I know which podcasts I can make the most money off of. And some people will even come on my podcast or even come on my page. And when we would talk about, the UDONKA situation, I know, and we'll talk about that later, but I just wanted to talk about this first. I wanted to talk about something that was more important and something that just needs to be brought to light, because people are really just kind of just brushing it over. But I am here to tell you, people comment way more on the UDONKA situation than they do on the Brett Favre situation. You'll put up a whole article, multiple articles from different sources, mind you, because I try to vet everything. Of course, there's always a few that slip through the cracks, human error, I do my best, stick with me. But, but if you see something, say something, MTA it, let me know what's up. Like, hey, like this was a little crazy, and I know a few of you have done that, and I appreciate that, trust me. But nothing. I don't even know if y'all even read the article. I don't even know if you even cared. But for some reason, scandals, they're proven. Drama, that's proven to get the most hits, the most attention, the most likes. And you hate to say that, because you would think that people care more about, rich people stealing from poor people, even though that it's probably the most American thing you can do, right? Let's just call it what it is. It's just crazy to me. But people need to understand this. This is reality. This is the world we live in. And if you don't like it, don't be a part of it. If I post something about Brett Favre, comment. Tell me what you think about it. Tell me how it's not getting as much as attention as UDONKA. Please. I need you to be a part of that. But if you don't comment on it, and I'm looking at the statistics and I'm sitting there saying to myself, wow, morally, ethically, we should be talking about this on every level. It's criminal. Like, think about it. People are always talking about how people need to help themselves. How can they do that if they have rich? Why aren't you saying that to people who have the money? The resources. He was in cahoots with the governor. How do you fight that? Like, if you're in an impoverished, system already, and we don't even need to go down that line, but use your head. That's all I'm trying to say. Use your head. When you're so quick to say, oh, why can't you just do this? Oh, why can't they just do that? Or they make it. Stop. I already know where you're going. And you know what? The majority of people are not like that. You're really talking about a very small portion. And it's usually the small, they always seem to speak for everybody else, so the majority. And that's unfortunate. Because you're creating a culture of we should be turning a blind eye to this, or it's not that serious because they weren't going to do anything with it anyway. Like, who are you? Like, really? Like who raised you? Like, how could you say a thing like that? When you don't even know that community, when you probably never even been there, and you're going to sit there and talk about it like That's crazy to me. Like, you got to Rethink your values, rethinking where you're really trying to go. Like, what are you really trying to do? You know, which side of history are you trying to be on? You know what I mean? Nobody's perfect. But don't be a part of the problem. Don't continue to perpetuate, you know, that narrative. The bottom line is, if Brett Favre did this and the way it's looking, he shouldn't be doing COPPERFIT commercials. At the very least. I mean, can we say that? I mean, you can say whatever else, but at the bare minimum, right? I mean, why is he still doing commercials? Why is he still getting to make money? Did he ever give that money back? And we're just saying allegedly, if he did do it, I guess we have to use those words. You know, even though you can sit there and watch somebody on video doing something, or, you know, or watch text or read text messages, you know, in his case. I mean, unbelievable. $6 million. But I do want you guys to understand that. I know everybody gets frustrated when they're like, wow, how can you pay attention to a stupid scandal that probably is really none of our business, if I'm really being honest. You know, that organization, like, that's, you know, and we'll get to it. Just stay with me. I'm just saying, like, this is criminal. This is something crazy. This is something, you know, an athlete, kids look up to. Like I said, if it was Cam Newton, y'all already know what this would be. I don't even want to hear it. Oh, no. Let it be Lamar Jackson. Let's talk about someone who is at the top of their game right now, right? Waiting for a contract. And I'm pretty sure he's waiting for a contract because, you know, you have stupid, you know, defensive coordinator sitting there saying that he's not a top tier quarterback. Like, do you wake up drinking? Like, how do you say that? And I'm just glad that Lamar Jackson is having the season that he is having, because I knew he was going to come out and let y'all know, like, okay, I was asking for this, but by the time I'm done, that price done gone up. Because why? Because yesterday's price, it ain't today's price. You know? So, like I said, just think about that. Next time you see something like that come across the headlines, sometimes bring attention to it. Why don't you share it on your page? If you don't want to comment on someone else's or mine or whatever, cool. Share it. Get it out there. Let it make noise. Because I'm telling you, your voice really is very impactful. Just think about the Robert Sarver incident. And we'll get into that as well. Trust me, words, noise, the right noise from the right people matter. That's all I'm saying. It's unfortunate that this story is not getting as much, you know, traction. You know, it did for like a hot second, and I don't even hear anybody talking about it. But I sit back, I'm paying attention, I'm seeing who is trying to bring light to it. But at the same time, it's like, man, we come down heavy for players, you know, athletes, you know, celebrities. I mean, we come at them hard for less, way less. We're not even talking criminal. I'm not even talking about anything criminal. I'm talking about more of like a controversial statement. Okay, they're not playing games, you know, or they're always injured. You know, I'm just saying, like, so much gets said about them. I mean, harshly. Right? Shut up and dribble. And we're not even talking about that. You know, when it comes to nonsense. I just mean, like, when they're actually trying to speak toward a cause, you know, when you're talking about social injustice and things of that nature, and they're being told to, like, shut up and dribble. But meanwhile, Brett Favre is doing commercials. It doesn't even sound like he's even hurt by any of this. Like, there was no bad press enough for sponsors to pull away from him. I don't know COPPERFIT, whatever you guys call yourselves. Like, maybe you're part of the problem too. It's crazy. How you can just get away with certain things, you know? And then people want to act like that doesn't exist. Come on. Sorry, it's my breakfast, you know, but you know, Celtics fans, you really had to decide where your morals lied, huh? Like that was I'm not gonna lie, that was crazy. When I first heard it, I, you know, made everybody aware of it on different outlets, so I shared it. But I made sure I was very careful not to comment. And if you know me, that was so difficult. I had all these things in my mind, like who could have leaked the story? I'm like, oh, maybe it was an employee, right? Maybe because, you know, whoever it was that he was messing with. We're talking about UDONKA, in case anybody's unclear. I'm thinking like whoever he was messing with, you know, one of the employees that works with this girl or this woman, they were probably getting special perks, or, you know, maybe I was like, maybe they had to do more work, so they probably snitched, you know, why I gotta stay late, why I gotta do this, you know, and, you know, she's getting flown around, and, you know, like, you know how, come on, you know how it is, you know how your coworkers are, there's always that one, right? That's what I'm thinking, but I'm like, you know what, let me stay quiet. And shout out to Matt Barnes, you know, for I mean, I know a lot of people were coming down on him because he automatically heard it, and he just, you know, said, nah, MA's my guy, and kind of just went on his side. And, you know, I don't fault him for that because he didn't know. And what I do give him a lot of credit for was coming back on the next day and straight up and just cleared it up and just said, you know what? I misspoke. There's a lot more to this story that we don't know. It's crazy. It's egregious. I don't even want to, you know what I mean, touch it. He said it's not his place, but I'm going to tell you, I don't condone this. And that's it. He changed his position because more facts were being given. And that was that. And that took a lot of guts, because at the same time, like, he also mentioned about the media, who tends to, you know, kind of just, you know, the story breaks, they just throw it out there, and there's rarely a retraction, right? There's rarely an admission of, oh, we were wrong, or we didn't have the facts, or they kind of just, you know, they kind of just say it in a way where, you know, they absolve themselves of any wrongdoing, right? Or just not being as forthcoming as they should have, or maybe not even being as patient, because that's really what it is. And you'll learn, you know, about this business, at least that, like I have, there's a certain level of patience. You know, I could have came out and just said something, right? I could have came out and just told you exactly what I thought or what I think, you know, and then choose a side. And honestly, I did not want to do that. Even then, like, I didn't want to choose a side because I just felt like in those situations, there are no winners. They may have felt like there was in a moment, but there's no winners in that situation. There really isn't. The Celtics, if we're just talking about basketball at the moment, excuse me, they were just in the NBA Finals, you know. Tatum was injured. I know there's a lot of what ifs on the side of the Celtics. On top of that, you have to consider what actually happened. We found out this is the vice president's wife. Just let that sink in. For everybody who's sitting up there saying they should have handled this in-house, I don't think you're giving enough credit to what happened. But I'm going to back up a bit. I'm going to back up because at first we didn't know it was the VP's wife. We didn't know, right? We didn't know what was going on. This summer, we just found out about, you know, Jason Tatum was injured. Like, he had a misplaced bone in his wrist or something to that effect. So, you know, we're just learning. If you're paying attention to, you know, Jaylen Brown, he's been doing these crazy, like, underwater exercises, you know, trying to get better, you know, just like everybody else in the offseason. Whatever you're trying to get better at, that's what you're doing. And you're doing it for an extended period of time. And, you know, and then you vacation, you know. that's what it is. And I'm sitting here thinking it's like the videographer or something, you know, and I'm not trying to like minimize it for those of you who, you know, hold this, you know, very close to the chest. But I'm just saying, at the same time, people need to understand this. And this is for bosses only, because there are some people or someone who's like emotionally mature. You need to know yourself. This is a time where you need to be self-aware and understand that this conversation forward may not be for you. Just letting you know. When you're a leader and you're in a leadership position, I know a lot of y'all probably just said, "Well, no, nope, I want to have it my way." I know. Like I said, it's not gonna. This conversation is not going to be for everybody. It's part of growing up. Everybody thinks when you're the boss, it means you get to do whatever you want. No, it actually means when you're the boss, it actually means you have to do everything, and then you have to set the example. So it's harder, you know. So you almost have to feel like you're in. You know what I mean? Like you have to be perfect, you know, and that's challenging. You know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, you are human. So to live up to that, no matter what's going on in your life, every day you're held to that standard, or at least I would. You know, it's your job. You know, it's what a leadership position is. It's not easy to be in such a position, but so when you have somebody that's your subordinate, you know, and the thing is, we don't even know if he hired her. We don't know, like, you know what I mean? You see how it gets messy? It gets messy. You know, this is why some companies don't even allow it. And I know some people are probably like, yeah, but how are you going to stop them? The reality is you can't physically stop it. But at the end of the day, this is why companies like don't want it. It's messy, especially when you're in that, you know, that leadership role, and then you have your subordinates, because you're obviously going to be getting perks. There's obviously, like, if you guys get into a fight, there's obviously going to be tension. Now you got to do things that maybe you didn't have to do before. Like, come on, read between the lines. We're all grown here. We're all adults, you know. And for the kids listening, you know, you need to understand there are consequences for your actions. And when you do something as egregious as UDONKA did on so many levels, I mean, when they say you don't crap where you eat, I mean, I thought they were on the verge of building something special. I'm not a Celtics fan, obviously, but I'm a fan of basketball, and there's just certain franchises that have such, you know, I mean, 17 championships. I mean, when you think about Boston's history, I mean, don't get me wrong, there's a lot of things they need to clean up as well. But I just mean, you know, on this more of the side of the fans and, you know, Bill Russell era and even to today's era. But I just mean in the sense of you have to understand you have a responsibility. Nobody wants to hear it. Everybody thinks that they can do whatever they want to do and that there's just no consequences. And I also love the special people who have the opinion that think that the person below, or, you know, that's the subordinate of UDONKA, should get the same consequences he does. Like I said, this conversation was for bosses and leaders, or just people who are emotionally mature enough to understand why that's not going to be it. And this is the best way I can explain it to you. Let's say the team, they decide to get drunk, right? Let's say the videographer, they organize it. And videographers, I'm sorry, I don't have nothing against y'all. I'm sorry. It's just an easy tag to kind of just whatever. Anyway, you know, it was a videographer. They're the ones who organize it. They said, let's go out. Let's throw some back. Let's have a great time. Mind you, they have a game the next day. Yeah. They have a game. Pretty big one, too. Maybe it's one of those games where they're fighting to get in, I don't know, the playoffs. Since we have the playoff tournament, let's use that, right? Because that's what we have right now. So if they lose this game, they don't get into the playoffs. Let's just say that. They're out having an amazing time, right? So everybody naturally, Ubers at home because they're responsible, safe, right? Awesome. Everybody, makes it back safely. Great. But when they play that game, they get blown out. 40 points. Worst ever. Didn't show up. Nobody could get back down on defense. Everybody's dehydrated. Somebody got dragged off because they were cramping up. Not all the Pedialyte in the world could have saved them. So, who do we blame? Players were out there, assistant coaches. You know what? Let's throw the trainers in there. Trainers were out there. The coach was out there, having the best time, having the most drinks, Or, you know what? No. He was having the least drinks. It was everybody else. The videographer. He was the one that was getting down. Again, sorry, videographers. Nothing against you guys. Who's to blame? We don't need to do this, right? The coach is going to be to blame. Nobody's going to even know the videographer's name. The videographer's name is not going to be on a headline. It's not going to be trending. It's not going to be in a paper. You will never know who organized it. The only thing you will know is that the coach was there. And maybe the star players, right? Depending on who the star player is. But for the most part, it's going to be the coach that gets the blame. We don't need to do this. It's the same thing. If you're in a leadership position and you have your subordinates doing the same thing that you're doing, and then you guys don't show up to do your job, it's the leader that's going to take the blame. And maybe other people, but for the most part, it's the leader. Why? Because you have the power. You can hire, you can fire, you can decide you can decide literally how someone's day is going to be. As the boss, you have that type of power. You may not think about it like that, but you do. Employees definitely go to work saying to themselves, I don't even know what kind of day I am. It really depends on my boss. It depends on what they make me do. You have control over how their day is going to be. And you don't really get that maybe until maybe you are a boss. But I'm telling you, I've been on both sides of it now. It's crazy. It's crazy. You have a responsibility. It doesn't matter what you think of. It doesn't matter how little you look at it, or he wasn't married. That you're missing the whole point. We're actually talking about work at this point. If we were talking about if we're talking about away from the organization, for me, it's a non-issue. It's not even a conversation. That's something that he needs to be talking about with Neil Long. That has nothing to do with me. Even a Celtics fan, that has nothing to do with you either, because he'll still be the coach. You shouldn't lose sleep. That's not, you know what I mean? Like, that's where it gets messy. This was only a thing because he decided to do this on, with somebody on the job. Or the vice president's wife. We didn't even, you see, that's why I didn't even want to get to that point yet. Like, that's just so crazy. That means, that's really some, I don't give a, I can't even imagine. That is wild. You think of your wildest, and you're like, is that M.A. wild? Or is that, even now I've done some, but M.A., you talking you talk about taking, you just took everything. You just ran with it. And then if you really want to get real detailed with it, he did this with someone else as well, and they also worked on the job. And if you really want to take it a step further, she actually was responsible for arranging Neil Long's travel arrangements. I think, does he hate Neil Long? Does he, why? I can see if he was young, you know what I mean? And this would still be wrong. Don't get me wrong. Please don't get me wrong. But you're a grown man, bro. Like, what are you doing? Did you really think you was gonna get away with that? Do you really think this was gonna be a happily ever after? And then after, we didn't even mention the fact that he just moved Nia Long to Boston 2 weeks ago. Just 2 weeks ago. And she was blindsided by all this, according to all the reports. And the team knew, everybody knew, all summer long. Like, I don't know. But if you're a Celtics fan, I definitely understand your fandom. I understand why you're thinking, you know what, they should have kept it in-house. They should have did X, Y, and Z. No. If you're the vice president, I'm going to keep it real with you. If you're the vice president, right, and this was your wife, yeah, you can sit there and say, yeah, you should be more mad at your wife. I can't speak to his situation. I don't know their situation. I don't even know them. I'm not even going to touch that. I'm just saying, if I'm just looking at this objectively, you have to understand that the vice president, yeah, so you're talking about coach, VP, you're creme de la creme, right? You have a lot of pull, you know, a lot of people throughout the NBA. We're not even just talking about the organization, because you're executive level, you know, that's company car and who knows what other kind of perks, right? You don't just want this dude fired, and that's why I think that's why they didn't fire them. I think he'll eventually get fired, to be honest with you. But or maybe the VP will leave. I don't know. I don't see how those conference calls, you know what I mean? I don't see, you know, I don't know. I don't see that working. But you don't want him just fired. You want to hurt him. You want to hurt him just as much as he hurt you, right? Because maybe, you know, his wife is just obviously not a nice person. We'll just put it like that, right? Because we don't know what he did. Like, that's why I don't want to get into that. You know what I mean? But I'm just saying, like, I mean, the fact that you would go after, that sounds very vindictive. And also that fact that his wife would do that, right? And it was consensual from what the reports were saying. So that's crazy. But I'm just saying, like, if you're the VP, you want to hurt him and you don't want to see this man work again. So you want the storylines to keep dragging out. You want this to keep trending. You want this to be a conversation all season. And I believe that's why they suspended him for a year and why they said they're going to revisit this, because I feel like they want this trending. So if this is the kind of guy that you want in your organization, they want to remind you of that. They want to keep that in the back of your mind when you sit here and say, good coach, thought he was a good leader, you know, but I don't know. But one thing I must say is when it comes to reading a lot of these comments, and I don't know, like, something's wrong with some of y'all. Like, I don't know if it's because you've been hurt before or because sometimes I think people have just been around so much toxicity. They think this is normal, and this isn't normal, guys. Like, this ain't normal. This is not normal. So this is definitely unprecedented from my knowledge. If you know of another instance where this has happened before, like this has happened before, and then after he was warned about it, and then you go for the VP, like, wow. I mean, it's like I spoke about even in the other podcast when you talk about, you know, the brotherhood that they like to, you know, create. And I know a lot of times that's just with the players, but it's with the coaches too. The coaches, you know, around the league, and they respect each other. And now I understand that this is an executive, and I don't know, but I would just assume if you're a part of that organization, you know, there should be a level of respect. There should be a level of trust, right? Like, I mean, what does that say about your character if that's what you would do to the people who pay you, right? I mean, but like I said, there's no winners in this situation. You know, whether you choose a side, you're thinking you're choosing the the winning side or whatever. There is no side. There's nothing but losers here, and collateral damage. And those are the players, right? That had nothing to do with it. Probably didn't even know about it. You know, and other people around the organization that have been affected by this, like I said, that literally have nothing to do about it. They probably found out just like everybody else. You know, you don't know if people are on vacation or just coming back to train, and they're like, "Wait, do you see this? Like, is this true?" You know, because things come out all the time, and trust me, and when you had the more, it feels like the more sources you have, the more vetting you have to do, because everybody's so quick, you know, to have a story. They just want the hottest thing. It don't even have to be the right thing. It just has to be the hottest thing, you know, clickbait sort of thing. But yeah, and that's really all I'm going to say about that. You know, everybody can have their own opinion, and that's on you, because at some point you're going to have to figure out your priorities, you know, outside of sports. You know what I mean? Like that's on you. That's your family, that's your life, and that's how your mindset is. There's nothing I can do about it, nothing I want to do about it, but I'm just letting you know my takeaway. This was crazy, and that's it. This is crazy. If you're a Celtics fan, I feel for you, because you obviously had nothing to do with it. And that's also what I meant by collateral damage, just the fans, especially. Nothing to do with it, you know, even though they did have a press conference about it and everybody had their feelings on it, whether they felt like, you know, people were, the owner, I don't even want to be in the owner's situation, man. I feel like they did the best they could. Like, I know, like, Stephen A. and a lot of people were pretty upset because they felt like this should have never came out. And I guess when you screw over that many people, I mean, I don't know. Because I think at that point in time, it's only for it only benefits, I can't even say the organization, because you screwed the organization. Like, literally. Like you screwed the organization. So I don't know, how can you keep that internally? I mean, like, I don't know. Like, that doesn't sound healthy. It's just, you know, that doesn't sound healthy. At some point, if you're that type of guy, you know what I mean? Like, you're going to have to suffer the consequences. Like, what do you want me to tell you? Like, you decided to do that. You were warned about it, and then you did it anyway? What do you want me to say? Like, we're adults. Like, there's consequences for your actions, you know? And I'm sure you knew you were going to get caught at some point. I just don't think you cared, or I don't know. I don't know what could be going. Well, that's that. But to be continued, because like I said, this is just going to drag out, because we don't know if he's going to stay the coach. We don't know what else further. Brad Stevens, man, like, I know the owner has to be like, because I know the owner kind of joked about, you know, Brad Stevens like going back down to coach, but Brad Stevens has no, you know, he has no interest, zero interest, especially by his tone in that press conference, and his tone was so somber. I didn't see it, I heard it, so I can just hear it in his voice, but he almost sounded like he was like crying. You know what I mean? Like, that's how it was. Like, somebody, you know, working under him, like, you know, I mean, he was probably really close to him, you know, the guy that this happened to. So that's crazy. And I know the owner has to be like, man, if I had to just kept Brad Stevens as coach and just let Emi Udoka be a coach somewhere else. I mean, there's hindsight's always 2020. I know a lot of people are sitting there saying like, man, he was only here for 2 years, and it sounds like he did a lot of damage in 2 years, and they said they vetted him before they hired him, and they didn't come across anything, you know, that was nowhere like near as crazy as this was. But oh man, like that's rough. Like I said, that's rough. I definitely feel for the organization. I feel for, you know, all parties involved. I feel for all parties that didn't want to be involved, but somehow they're involved. So, no winners. That's it. I do wish the Celtics luck. Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, that should have been the story, right? Whether these two can coexist, right? I'm sure a lot of Celtics fans miss that narrative in comparison to what the narrative is right now and how everything just seems so messy. And I do believe in a lot of organizations keeping a lot of things internal, but I guess, this thing imploded. And when things implode, some things are going to, leak out, That's just the nature of it. I think it was just too much mess. Too much mess. And I know Adam Silver, Adam Silver. He's been dealing with so much with the Robert Sarver thing, and you saw his presser, right? I mean, I know he was probably like, y'all got this, right? Y'all got this. So in a way they did handle it internally, it just got leaked because you don't know who leaked it though, like I said. You don't know who. It could have been, you don't even know if it was the kids of the married people. Like the point is, it happened. Consequences are being had. And that's it. And the NBA didn't get involved because Adam Silver is definitely tired. Y'all wearing the man out. Like I said, he was one of the best commissioners in sports, and I even spoke about the Robert Sarver thing, and I said that I felt like he didn't really take the right action, as needed, as being a very progressive, league when you look at all the other leagues that we have. And I felt like he's always done a really good job, very stand-up job, in tackling all these issues. But Robert Sarver, people do forget that the commissioner does work for the owners, right? All 30 of them. So things can get a bit dicey. As you know about Robert Sarver, how he was even told numerous times about, chill out with the misogynistic and the racist talk, but how you gonna chill out with something if that's in your heart, right? Like that's clearly what it was. He said, he apologized, just to kind of refresh from the last podcast I did and kind of give you guys like a follow-up on what's transpired. I'm sure you've already heard, but just to give you like a little bit of my take on it. Robert Sarver, he definitely apologized. He definitely, well, I don't know if he apologized really. People have like a weird way of apologizing. I don't know if they're seeking guidance because they never really apologize in the sense of where they're taking responsibility for their actions. They kind of more so it seems like they're just kind of apologizing that you either heard it or the way you took it. Just no other way to take those kind of comments, but I don't know what's in his heart, in terms of that. But I thought that was interesting how he did. Yeah, that's Kobe. He's pretty outraged by this as well. But just to make that clear, he did somewhat try to twist it, right? So this is how it is nowadays. Nowadays, you can say and do the most egregious things, right? I'm noticing. And all people have to say is, wow, I thought this was like the land of opportunity or the land of second chances. And yes, while I did something wrong, but I can't even have a chance to change, right? Or to right those wrongs, because that's the culture that we lived in today. Like that's the narrative that he was trying to create. And I thought that was just really, really small of him, because it's like, okay, you're apologizing, but then in the same statement, you're also trying to say that what? It's our fault now because of the culture that we created? Or no. Let's not blame the racist or the misogynistic people, right? For the reason why we even have to have these conversations. Because the reality is, if your actions aren't that, then we don't have to do this. Why do people have to come to work every day feeling like that? People that work below you. Why? So just because you own a team means that you get to be belittled? Like, that's one thing that I feel like a lot of owners and a lot of people got twisted. At the end of the day, you don't own people. Hey, bosses out there, corporations, you don't own people. You don't. You employ them to do a service or a job, right? In exchange for money. That's it. That's it. They clock in, they do what they have to do, and that's it. And somehow, I think people get this so twisted. Yeah, so at the end of the day, what happened was genius. And I'm going to tell you how. It all started when players started to have a voice. Once those players started to have a voice, it definitely shined a light. It definitely made other players more aware of the fact that, you know what, my voice needs to be heard too, because that's how you affect real change. You have to have a voice, right? Yes, you have to educate yourself, but at the same time, you have to have a voice. You have to sit there and have the confidence enough to say, you know what, when something is wrong, right, I'm going to speak on it. And especially if it's in your heart. If that's something that you truly believe, then you have to speak on it. And major props to Draymond Green. Because when Draymond Green decided to speak out on his podcast, The Draymond Green Show, if you haven't seen it, you definitely should check it out. I appreciate Draymond. I appreciate his words. You may say what you want about him. If you don't watch his podcast, I guess you're not able to see the certain things that I'm able to see. That's just the reality of it. Because when you're just seeing them on the court, you can't really get a sense of who they are as a player. You know what I mean? Or as a person, excuse me. You just know how they are as a player, right? And that's still based off of your own beliefs most of the time. Unless you really follow the game like that. But anyway, so Draymond Green said on his show that when it was still up in the air, when they didn't know what to do about Robert Sarver, because I'm like, man, you know, he owns the team. We can't make him sell the team. I mean, there's not as much. It wasn't like a Donald Sterling, right? Close, similar circumstances, similar players and CP3 around that, you know, but not the same in the sense of the video, because everybody needs video now. I mean, witnesses aren't enough. And nobody really believes, I guess, a low-level employee. And that's really what it boils down to. Nobody wants to say it like that. But I'm here to tell you, like, that's exactly what it is. There's nobody higher enough up that probably has so much, you know, to lose. And they probably are too close to it, meaning too close to the money, too close to the owner. And they probably have certain perks and certain advantages that they're not willing to give up to say the right thing. That's just what it is. And a lower-level employee, they can get a job somewhere else, I guess, and it's no big deal for them to, you know, and they're the ones that are probably getting treated like that. Let's put it that way. So it makes more sense why they would want to, you know, shine light on it and speak up about it. But Draymond Green was like, okay, you know what? You guys own the team, so we understand that. He's speaking specifically to all the owners. You guys have a vote. You guys have a vote on whether you want this guy still in our league. If this guy still represents all the values that we hold to be true, this is what you guys are going to vote on. Now, whether that means that he will actually be out just because of that vote, that doesn't matter. Draymond Green is smart. He understands the court of public opinion is so strong. He understands that it's so much easier to get everybody against one guy than to sit there and have a whole process and it may not even end up getting the results that you may want to get. But the court of public opinion is strong. So he said, you guys take it to a vote. Because think about it. Because now everybody gets to see their owner and how they voted. Now you'll get to see who your owner really is. Because if your owner sits there as the one that say, you know what, I stand by this guy. I stand by everything that he says and he does. Then we really going to see what's up. Because then we're going to have an uprising, right? Because then you're going to have other, you know, stars on teams saying, oh, That's how you feel? Okay, I'm not playing. Just taking the power back. And I love that, because at the end of the day, what are we even talking about? Why do players have to play under those circumstances? Why do employees have to work under those circumstances? Listen, life's hard enough. Like, cut the crap. Cut the, judgmental, the hate that's in your heart that you think is right because you were told that. Please. Right is right, wrong is wrong. If you can't tell the difference, then you need help getting there. But in the meantime, you don't need to be running a league. You don't need to be in a leadership position, which those people are under you, and they have to sit there and deal with the abuse that they can't pay, to go get help. You know what I mean? Like, they don't have that type of money. They have to live their lives. It's ridiculous. It's like, what are we even talking about? So what happened? Robert SARVER resigned. Naturally. He was like, I'm not even going to... Because at the end of the day, you really going to put everybody else in that position? All because of your doing? Accountability. Just be accountable for your own actions. Stop trying to blame everybody else. Stop blaming the culture that we live in. Stop using racist comments. Like, it's actually a lot easier. You know what I mean? Just stop. Just like it was so easy for you to be misogynistic and so easy for you to be racist, I guess it's just easy for us to not want you in the league. I don't think that's the same. I don't think that's something that could really be helped, to be honest with you. But if you think someone can change, okay. And I'm not even saying they can't. It's just the chances of that happening while in that position, it's just not likely. You have too much power. Nobody can check you. Nobody can tell you what to do, how to talk. Because apparently they've been doing it. You wasn't listening anyway, right? Because you have no real reason to listen. An employee, they have to listen to you. They get fired. They get fined. Blackballed. See how that works? That's why when you're in a leadership position, that's why it matters. It matters more what you do. People are just not aware, With great power does come great responsibility. It's not always fun, But yeah, that's one thing I really applaud Draymond Green about, because you don't understand, like, without that platform, we would have never gotten to this. We would have never known this. This probably would have dragged out a lot longer than it really needed to be. Like, if this is how it is, this is how it is. And that's just that. But don't worry, we're going to get into the games on the next one. Always remember one thing. Losses equals life lessons. Peace.
Gotta be true to yourself. In a world there's nothing else. Gotta play the game right, gotta make your path. You scratch, you dig, you lay in your ground. You bustin' your rounds, nobody gon' stop you. No ops, no cops, everything about you. Looking good, you good, she good. Y'all people really wanna know the reason. It's just that ripple effect. That karma come back quick. Do somebody wrong, you get sick. I just inspire kids, because of that maybe I get rich. Gotta see the future, be smarter than a rooster. No hookah, you focus. No drinking, no smoking, no tokens, no handouts. Everybody in the world, get your plans out. Let's do it, let's go, let's get our minds ready. We elevate intellects right here on the K-Dot Show. That's just that ripple effect. That's just that ripple. That's just that ripple effect. What you do, come back triple. That's just that ripple effect. That's just that ripple. That's just that ripple effect. What you do, come back triple.